How are you finding your deals? I'm sure you're a resource to a lot of wholesalers. Can you talk about that kind of avenue of it?
Just a quick summary of 3 steps I would suggest. I don't care what niche you're in. Find a niche you can get behind, right? That you can get passionate about. 2, find someone in the niche still doing it, still active, not a has-been that's where you want to be. And 3rd, make sure you put blinders on at that point, and for 36 months, go in that lane. Don't deviate for all the shiny objects. If you do that 3-step formula, you'll have success in almost any business, but relative to real estate is what we're talking about today.
Welcome to the Investor Financing Podcast, where we interview real estate investors and lenders so you can learn all the secrets to getting your projects funded and scale your portfolio. And now, your host, Beau Eckstein.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. And I'm your host, Beau Eckstein. And today we have a very special guest. And we're going to talk about buying and selling on terms, Mr. Prefontaine. And this is going to be a very exciting episode for you because many of you have been requesting that we talk more about seller financing and creative financing structures. And remember, it's all about the terms. I work on the financing side, but I always advise people out there, hey, look for motivated sellers that might be willing to entertain a seller finance deal and finance. There's advantages for them as well. But you're going to get a lot of nuggets today, and stay tuned and be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you inside the episode. All right, Chris. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you got started? I know you've been in the real estate investing world for like 30 years, and now you got the whole family involved. Can you kind of dive into that about how you got started and then how you brought the family in?
Yeah, so I'll give the backdrop quickly, because if not, we'll be here all day for 30 years. But so 91, started building homes, spot building on terms, didn't take out bank loans then even. Then I bought a Realty Executives franchise, sold that ultimately to Coldwell Banker in 2000. And then from 2000 right to the crash, I did my own properties, raised the roof, condominium conversions, and in regular investments, and started coaching actually throughout North America. The crash is what really caused us to re-engineer everything, like everything. So we got beat up. So we said, okay, what are we going to do to go forward if we even go forward? We were so spent. And it was things like, okay, don't sign personally anymore on loans. That was stupid. Don't solicit money. Just, again, all simple stuff that doesn't cause stress at night, right? So then we said, okay, let's buy everything on terms. That is lease purchase, owner financing, and subject to existing financing. Those are the only 3 ways we buy. And it was all because of the 08, what I call the 08 debacle in my book with the crash.
That's great, because I was a young investor in I always tell people I had a midlife crisis. I was about 27, 28 when 2007 hit. And I was a residential mortgage broker. I had bought in all these properties in the wrong sense, where I was speculating. I didn't really get real estate investing, and I got my butt handed to me. And I was living in Lake Tahoe at the time, and I remember I had to move back to the Bay Area. And it was like the worst of the worst times, because I probably should have filed bankruptcy. I didn't. I sold what I could. I got foreclosed on, and on numerous, and I had like $100,000 of charge-offs, right, on credit. And so then I didn't know what to do, because I was a residential mortgage broker at the time, and like I couldn't make money because the lending was not there. And my low point was really I remember this, and my low point was I had no money. I didn't want to ask my parents. Just couldn't even really survive much longer. And I remember I called my brother just to talk to him, my older brother, and I started crying. This is a true story. I started crying because it's just like I was just so beat. And anyways, my brother's always been a very good saver and a good business person in his own right. And I remember he says, "Hey, I'll take care of you." He overnighted me a check for $5,000. And then from there, I just rebuilt, right? And I said, okay, I'm going to do things hopefully the right way this time. And obviously, if you're in real estate, things don't always go right, even if you plan everything to a T. There's a lot of challenges, and a lot of people make real estate investing like it's easy, and it's really not easy. It's easy when the market's appreciating and going up and everything's in your favor. And what I like that we're going to talk about today is that you've been there, you've done that, and now we're going to talk about acquiring properties subject to how to disposition properties on terms, how to kind of avoid a lot of the headaches that I've had and you as well. And so I guess the point is so when this all happened to you in 2008 and you went through some, hard times, then you kind of said, okay, what am I going to do differently? And then you kind of got into the whole like different toolbox, right? I got this, I got the lease option, I got the seller financed acquisition, I have the sub 2. And so you change your whole mindset around, and then you just started acquiring properties, with creative financing essentially. And that became your kind of niche in the marketplace, right?
Yeah. Two things come to mind when you say that. One is everyone was saying that's the wrong time to do that. Why are you doing that again? Everyone was going the other way still in 2000. This would have been end of 12, beginning of 13. So everybody said, oh, you don't want to do that. So that's one thing lesson there is please don't listen to people. Usually they're going in the opposite direction where you should be going. And the second thing was that I didn't say when we defined kind of the new rules of the box, like you said, one of the issues was, okay, I was tired of one payday. Realtor, one payday. A lot of one paydays, but one payday. Building, one payday. Flips, one payday. So we designed and we trademarked in the United States, took a while, it's in place now, the 3 payday system. Because why on earth would you get paid once if you can get paid 3 times on a single deal? Why? So in any entrepreneur on the planet, I don't care what business you're in, it doesn't have to be real estate, would say, hey, that's kind of cool. Cash now, cash over time, and cash later. That's like the ideal entrepreneurial model. So that's what we put together.
So would you mind giving me an example of like an acquisition to a disposition, like a model that would be great, pretty much anywhere, like what you're kind of preaching right now? Can you show us an example of that, on the acquisition, and then you turn around and dispo it?
Yeah, so let's do a simple one because my favorite happens to be owner financing on free and clear properties. Because I can give a scenario where someone's stressed out and give a subject, but let's talk about free and clear properties since about a third of the United States are free and clear. That's a lot of properties. So we purchase the free and clear properties usually with no money down, and here's the key, principal only monthly payments. So before I talk about the exit, think about this. If you can find a home, and we have one we bought for $183,000, I'll use for this example. But if you can find a home for $200,000, about $200,000 or more, which is a lot of markets, you can structure 48 months or more. We structure 48, and you can structure $900 payments or $950 to be safe. Principal only per month. Our 3 paydays, the way I'm about to explain it, would be over 6 figures, 6 figures and up. So this house we bought for $183,900, owner financing. The owner then accepted $923 monthly principal payments for 48-month term. And the sell on this was we always do rent to own, at least initially. Sometimes we convert them to owner financing, but rent to own at the beginning. And we sold to them for about I think it was $229,900. So do the math on the 3 paydays. We get an upfront deposit. This case was really small. We don't do this anymore, but we did a $15,000 deposit in this house. Payday 1. Payday 2 is we're paying the owner, remember, $923. We're collecting from the tenant buyer $1,500. That's payday 2. Times that by 4 years. Payday 3 is really cool because you have the markup from $183,900 to $229,900, but you also have $923 a month for 48 months coming off principal. So it's a big back end. It's like 80-something grand. You add up all those 3 paydays, it's $128,000. On a 183 purchase, that usually blows people's minds because it's the free and clear aspect of principal only. Pretty neat.
So when you closed on that property, you essentially just paid closing costs. You actually took title on the acquisition side. You structured a principal only for 48 months. So you're strictly paying down principal. And so and then at the same time you're finding the rent to own buyer. You structure the sales price 4 years out, essentially.
Yep. We lock it in now. Yep.
Exactly. Lock in the price, like you're buying at $229,000, your price was 183. So you got the spread there. Plus you got the spread of the pay down over the 4 years, because it's paying it down, whatever, 20 grand or so. I mean, even more, whatever that number is. So at the time you go to, you actually close, or your rent to own buyer closes again, right? That 183 is down to, I don't know what, let's say
140 something, 140
something.
139.
So then you make that 80 grand spread, give or take. Plus you made the 15 grand up front, plus the $500 or $600 a month.
Yep.
With
That's
maybe
how it gets up there so high.
Maybe $4 or $5 grand in closing costs, or whatever the case.
The transfer tax on that was probably, it's $4.56 a thousand when I bought it. So I don't know what that is, $1,800 or so. It's not a lot, but yeah, all said and done, $3-4 grand.
Yeah. So that's what I call a sweetheart deal, right? I mean, that's the that's the deals that we want to figure out. And people go, oh, well, the market's so hot, we can't do that now. I mean, I just interviewed a young gentleman. He just did the similar thing on a 6-unit property, right? Like he was able to get the seller to finance the whole thing. So I know there's always that resistance from people that aren't out in the field doing it. Like I can't do that. That doesn't work in our market, or our market's too high price, or
all of the above.
But people, I mean, I'm sure you and your family and your team, you're acquiring properties like this to this day. And you also have a coaching platform. So many of your students are learning kind of the strategies, and they're doing this today. So it doesn't matter if the market's going up or down, there's opportunities. Granted, I want to get your thoughts on this. We're probably going to be in some kind of changing market eventually. Like right now, I'm kind of shocked what's going on with the market, we're in COVID and people are overpaying for properties and things.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to go into, I would say 2-3 years from now, or maybe 12 months, 18 months, probably a good short sale market again? Do you kind of see that writing on the wall now, or what's kind of your take? I mean, nobody has a crystal ball.
No, you and I knew that would be on the beach somewhere, right? For good. But a couple comments. First of all, yes, we still do these deals. Not only do we teach it when you said students, but we're doing it with them, Beau. So we know what's going on. We do 25 or 30 a month with them. So it's not like I sold something to them and maybe they're out there doing deals. No, we do deals with them. It's part of our mission to complete transactions. So we're not one of the many educators that just sells crap and doesn't care what happens after that. As far as the market, this was built after the crash, as we just said, right? And it was built to weather storms, literally. And I didn't know COVID was coming, but it was built to weather markets and storms. And it thrived as soon as COVID hit. So what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. Do I think, to your point, there will be an adjustment somewhere between 1 and 3? Yep. Do I think without that adjustment, because of the forbearance agreements, there's going to be short sales and foreclosures? That's a given. That's not you and I opinion. There's millions of households right now. I forget the exact stat. One of my students gave me last week, millions that are having a problem as this thing unwinds. And that's an opportunity for us investors to help, to be a guide, to be a lending hand to so many sellers that could lose their home. Picture this. You have last 9 years in the United States, pretty much a nice little run up, right? Okay, so they have equity. And now millions are going to lose that equity. If we don't step in, at least preserve their credit a little bit or preserve a little bit of equity for them, they're going to lose it all. So it's an opportunity. I don't want to say I don't care what happens, but I literally don't care what happens to the market. And I don't mean that in a crass way to the people that can get hurt. I'm saying because it's an opportunity for us and our model operates great either way. That's what I meant.
So on a different model, like the good thing is now is that people that have refinanced or purchased in the last 2-3 years or however been, the rates are historically low, right? So there's a great opportunity coming up, and it's happening now as well, that to take properties, subject to existing terms. And I know, a lot of people are worried about the acceleration. I know there's some banks that are more prone to accelerate, but in general, nobody's going to accelerate. It's a very small percentage. So how do you in my mind right now, I'm looking at all these FHA and different loans that when the market drops down and people need to relocate, now have no equity, and their options are to lease it out, which they're moving across the state. They don't want to do that, right? Or moving across the country. To sell at a loss and pay the difference. They don't want to do that. They don't have the money to do it.
Nope.
Or they can find a creative investor that can take the headache off their hands.
Right.
So on something like that, when do you really like take it as maybe like a lease option and do like a sandwich lease option or something like that? Or when do you say, okay, I'll do it subject to? Is there kind of like, can you kind of walk me through your mind or your thought process on that?
It's more about them, because if I had my druthers, I absolutely would take them all sub 2, because I want to control it. Having done so many of these now, I want to control it. I want to depreciate it. I want all the benefits. I don't want to chase someone at the end of a sandwich. We do a ton of sandwich. Don't get me wrong. That's how I started the whole thing. But now in hindsight, I'd rather do sub 2. So it becomes, what do they want, right? So a lot of times, and I want to combine these two because your question's really good. A lot of times, a seller will be so stressed out, they need immediate relief. There is no equity, so they'll be open to sub 2 day one. Others either have equity or aren't open to that. Hey, I got to give up my deed. So we go, okay, full well knowing that our reputation, our ability to perform is great. So we go back to them in 6, 9, 12, 18 months, sandwich leases, and we convert it to sub 2, several per year, every year. We convert sandwich to sub 2. It's a great strategy. So they get a chance to dance with you, get to know you, like you, trust you. Then you can convert. It's a much easier conversation when there's a relationship built. They see you paid the loan for 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. That's easy conversation. Give them a little cash, whatever it takes, transfer the deed.
And so the kind of the thought process behind that is that, okay, I already showed you for the last 24 months, payments were on time. They were actually 2 days early every day, every month. And the market still maybe isn't rebounded. So, it's the easiest thing right now is for me to acquire the property, be in title, so I can get some of the more of the advantages. I mean, I guess what would be their resistance of not doing it? What are they concerned about? That then they're going to be stuck on the loan, on their credit report, and how would you kind of advise somebody to kind of have that conversation with the previous owner?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind first before you get to that is, usually I look for like a reason or a motivation to offer this. I'll give you 2 examples. 1, no equity, 1 equity. So a woman leaves to Florida. I have a sandwich lease on her house. This is actually the first sandwich I ever did, and today I still own the house. So she leaves to Florida. There's no equity. So what's her incentive to do a sub 2 with me? Well, I knew she needed cash, like she needed water. And I said to her, listen, Deb, when this transfers at the end, you have transfer tax. You right now, technically you're tied to it liability wise to the house, right? So I said to her, why don't I send you $2,500? That was like a windfall for her. And I'll pay for transfer tax. She did it. Switch gears. I had a school teacher that had a 2-unit with me. I had done another deal with him. He left to South Carolina. So now he's out of the area. And I had a sandwich. And I called him. He was going to get $10,000 at the end. That was the equity we protected for the end of the term. I think it was a 48-month term. At year 2, I said, hey, Keith, what if I sent you, I offered him 5, we settled at 7,500. Instead of waiting 2 years for 10, I gave him 75 now, and I paid his transfer tax, and we bought the home. We still own it to this day. So there's usually a reason that you can, or a void you can fill to go ahead and get this sub 2. But as far as hey, I'm not comfortable transferring it, I don't fight it. Like there's one I have, it's got like 140 grand equity in it right now, and I've asked her 3 times over the years, and she just doesn't want to transfer title. It's okay. Like some people aren't going to be comfortable with that. I say to them, look, if you're going to put your head in the pillow at night and it's going to stress you out, don't do it. That's all.
So in your coaching program, basically when your student finds a deal, I mean, you have this whole program probably mapped out for them, right? Like, okay, this is your conversation you're going to have. This is how you're finding the leads. And then there's the actual mechanism of putting the deal together, right? Like getting to the finish line of either, buying it subject to, or buying it on some kind of terms, or doing some kind of lease option. So you're kind of helping your students structure that. I mean, it's like anything in life. Like I've bought in a ton of properties, creatively, but not on terms. And so like, that's where I'm in my personal real estate business is I'm missing the biggest piece, right? Like I'm good at, because I'm in the finance world, I'm good at like, okay, I'm going to get, a hard money loan here. I'm going to bring in the equity from somebody's IRA. And yeah, I could do 100% financing all day long, right? And like people go, how do you buy real estate with no money, right? I do it this way, and I'm good at that way. But I have to say, what's really been holding me back, and that's why I love interviewing people that I want to learn from, is that this side of it, right? It's like this side. What you're doing is the side that I want to be on, because it's basically the sky's the limit. I mean, you don't need capital, really. It may be minimal capital. You can usually charge it on your credit card. It's
Correct.
minimal, and essentially you can do as many deals. Plus, the other thing is a lot of like wholesalers are throwing away deals that are actually like huge golden nuggets, right? Like, so that's the other opportunity I see, that if you're a good deal architect, then wholesalers that are just passing on these deals and might throw them away, you're able to create lemonade out of them. So how are you finding your deals? I'm sure you're a resource to a lot of wholesalers. Can you talk about that kind of avenue of it?
Yeah. So I'll talk about the wholesalers first, because it's interesting. And this isn't small wholesaling. This is like, we were invited, you probably know Eddie Speed or know of Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie's like the master with notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that. So he does this thing last July 19 now, it's before COVID. He says, listen, I'm going to hand pick like 10 or 12 big wholesalers. Like there was $5, $10, $20 million wholesaling businesses in that room. And he called me and he said, well, do you and your son and son-in-law want to come out, be my guest here? So I said, sure. So what was interesting is that whole room was being taught how to do terms by Eddie's creativity with notes, but they were looking at it like, what the heck is this? Like they had no idea. So there's so many people in the wholesaling business flocking to terms now because of how it's performing right now with all this craziness. So we are a resource to those that want to refer, but the smart ones are learning it. They're learning it and they're tacking it onto their business. We have wholesalers in our community who then add this, not abandon wholesaling, become that architect, like you said, and can do both. As far as where we get our leads, simple. We have a company called MyPlus. It's on our website. They can provide you on a daily feed of expired, for rent by owner, and for sale by owner. Those three. And then we use PropStream, and we white labeled it, so we have our custom programs in there. But as well as FreedomSoft. But PropStream is a great database. We'll pull tired landlords. We'll pull free and clear, to our earlier conversation, and do our lead sourcing that way.
That's perfect. Are you doing any any short-term rentals? Is that any part of your structure? Are you doing any Airbnb or corporate rentals, or you mostly stick to kind of the kind of simple model where you're just finding the end buyer?
We do it. We mostly do the rent-to-own, and if they prove themselves, we can do a long-term owner financing if we have a sub-2 deal. Do some of our students, and on occasion will we do a single one-off VRBO or something? Yeah, but it's not our preferred method. Like we have a house right now down Cape Cod. It's a resort area overlooking the water. Long story, but the owner moved back in and rents it from us. We bought it, owner financing from a realtor, principal only, $1 million house. But if and when she moves out, I think she will before the note's up. We'll probably do it short term because it's overlooking the water and it makes sense, and then we'll spin it off. Yeah,
that's good. And so, are most of your students and yourself, are you guys buying locally, or are you guys kind of going in different markets? What is there some markets that you prefer over others? I mean, it'll work anywhere. I understand that, but I'm just kind of curious on like for example, I'm in Las Vegas, but I'm buying in Indiana. Is it something you recommend doing it locally first, or how do you look at that?
Here's what I tell people. Because so many other methods like apartments and wholesaling, they do stuff elsewhere. They go by the market. I said, look, just stay in your backyard, 50-mile radius, unless you have a reason to delve out. For example, Vanessa's in New York City, great student of ours. She's from Jacksonville, Florida. In New York City, it's tough. I mean, she's kind of stuck there with the job situation, but she started calling Jacksonville, and we do teach remote if people want to do it. And with COVID, it's acceptable, like you know. So she did her first deal there already. Never went, sold it, the whole bit. So that's because she has family that she grew up there. But if there's no reason, there's no reason for you to seek elsewhere. If there's no reason for you to be there, like family, or hey, I'd like to live there someday, so I'll prospect there. But other than that, no, you can stay local. Keep it simple.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm what I was thinking is I own a house here in Henderson, and I said, geez, how do I take my real estate investing business and like when I find that right opportunity, where I can be advantageous towards like I'm living in a house that I like, but it's not my dream house. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do I find somebody that's motivated, and I go and get that ranch that I want, style house with the pool, and I buy it on terms, and
Yep.
right? Like it doesn't have to be, it could be an investment that you're buying for yourself to move into. Cause that was kind of my goal. It's like, okay, let me find something with great terms on it right now that I can buy sub two. And so that's kind of like my next focus is like, I want to get that, because my goal, my vision board is to have the pool. I have a certain house kind of layout that I want. So I'm like, okay, when I'm doing my marketing, right, my next house could be this sub two. The beauty of that too, as well, is that it's not on your credit report, right? So you can keep your credit scores up. You don't have a bunch of credit inquiries, all that good stuff. When you're buying subject to, are you an advocate for doing like a trust, or do you just LLC, or what? I mean, I know there's no perfect science for it, but what's kind of your kind of general outlook on that?
I'll tell you what we do. And by the way, yes, you can and should get your own house that way. My daughter and son-in-law did it. And then at the end of the lease term, they decided instead of getting financing, they'd sell it and made six figures. So, I mean, you can and should. If you can't find one, I get it. But that's the only exception why you'd want to ever take out a loan is for yourself if you had to. So this isn't legal advice, right? I'm not trying to tell you how we do it. We take the home with a sub two and we put it into a trust. And the trust name is going to be, let's say it's your house, Beau, and it's 123 Zip Street. It would be 123 Zip Street, Beau, or your last name, Eckstein Family Trust. And that kind of screams that it's family planning. So it kind of falls under the 1982 or whatever date it was, Skyman St. Germain Act, where you can do some family trust planning and move it, and it doesn't trigger the due on sale. I'm not saying it's fail safe. We've never had an issue with it, but that's why we do it. To give that impression. And then there are steps. I mean, on YouTube, I do this, and in our private trainings, we do it on video, but there are steps to take relative to insuring it properly, the certificate of insurance, like everything, so that you don't trigger anything.
Yeah. And that's important for people out there to know, is like, there's, Chris can teach you the steps of how to get the right insurance, how to be named on the policy, or do you get a new policy? Those are all answered. And those are great questions. And I mean, we could spend hours and hours talking about that, about how to do that. But I definitely think that I like the trust idea. I like there's just the mechanisms of doing. It's like anything, right? Like the first time you get your first deal done, and you walk the student through the process, and then the next couple, you'll have less questions. And then once you do 2 or 3 of these, you pretty much can handle most anything. And there's always new variables that come up, right? There's always kind of different scenarios. There's a first and second mortgage. There's always obstacles, but really that's what I like about real estate, is there's so much to learn, and you can never, even if you've been in real estate for 30 years, you learn something new every day. Right? Like,
absolutely. That's what keeps me here. You just nailed it, because there's never the same deal ever.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm excited. Like, this is, just buying on terms. And even like when I'm buying cheap properties in the Midwest, and like, I can go the standard route, which is put a couple grand in, hire a property manager, and let them deal with the tenants and toilets and stuff. But at the end of the day, my real goal there on that side is, okay, well, if I bought this property, I'm all in at 20 grand. They're cheap properties, right? But they run out, but what if I could just sell on a rent to own model, right? Like, I haven't done that yet. I'm like, I'm so foolish, because a lot of these houses would be great rent to owns, and I don't have to deal with the management side of it. And, worst case scenario, they don't exercise their option. I have to take the property back. Potentially there, I might have to evict, obviously, but really, when it comes down to, the toilet's clogged. Oh, well, you're part of the agreement is that you're taking care of all the maintenance and things like that.
Yeah.
So on the dispo side, are you doing, how do you structure a lot of the dispo, like the rent to own? Is that more like kind of like essentially a lease option?
Yeah, we're very picky because there's just too many people right now. You can find it on YouTube. People saying, educators saying, yeah, I do rent to own and I let the buyers come in. I don't pre-qualify them. Who cares if they don't qualify? I go collect another deposit. It just stinks morally and ethically. So here's our setup. We do a rent to own. They don't get credit for the rental. They get credit for their down payment. They can't get in unless they have a down payment. They also can't get in until they go through our screening with a third party, my credit team, so that we know they can get mortgage ready. These guys are being underwritten in a sense for front end and back end ratios, job, everything. And then there's a mortgage ready plan so that they know they're going to succeed unless they screw it up. 2 to 5% of the buyers don't cash out. 2 to 5. They have life events. COVID, we lost 2. Things happen, but most of them do cash out for sure. And so that's our setup, rent to own. Now, if we own the house sub 2, Beau, then we'll say to them, hey, and it's a surprise. So we let them go through the whole qualifying, and then we say, hey, if you make all your payments on time, if you make your deposit payments on time, because our payday ones are sometimes over time, and you can get your deposit up eventually to 20%, then we will own and finance you and you'll never have to go to a bank. That's a nice surprise for them. And then we do a wrap. So we have a sub 2 and we do a wrap to them.
And then you're making the spread on the wrap the whole time too.
Yeah, and you still have your other paydays.
Yeah, so that's phenomenal. Let's quickly kind of talk about, and thank you. I want to talk about one of your books here, and I haven't got to read it yet, but it's definitely, I'm doing the 75 hard challenge, and we got to read every day as part of the challenge. So it's perfect timing.
Awesome.
Thank you. So in this book, you interviewed all different real estate pros. Can you talk about what the book's about?
Yeah, the new rules is 24 different experts in their niche. Because again, I'm not so naive to think, hey, everybody, this is the terms niche is the only route. I think it is. That's why I'm here, but biased. But we expose you to tax liens. We expose you to the wholesaling. We also expose you to experts in the mindset piece, because there's 3 pillars we teach, Beau: mindset, skill set, systems. Believe it or not, unbeknownst to most people, I don't care what you do, the mindset piece is most of the game. Because we sell the same course. Why then does someone do a deal in 30 days and 365? It's mindset. So in that book, we hit that too. My friend Joe Vitale's in there and some other great people that help you with the mindset piece. So that's a well-rounded book for someone looking to kind of, navigate through real estate.
And then you also have real estate on your terms, and I'm getting to take a stab at this. You talk about seller financing, creative financing in this book, right? Specifically.
Yeah, that one is most definitely what you and I talked about, the niche we're in. It outlines the entire business. It whiteboards deals for you like we do on YouTube. I mean, it has everything in that one. That's the terms niche right there.
Very cool. And so what kind of exciting you right now about real estate, like kind of going forward, where you're kind of focusing your efforts with your acquisition teams and your students?
Yeah, so with our own team, so two different answers there. With our own team, we are targeting the free and clear, but we've added homes that have 30% or more equity in them, because sadly you've had this run up for 9 years and people have that equity and a lot of them are going to lose it. So we're reaching out to them so we can help them not lose it. And then on the student side, it's exciting because we're seeing helping a lot of people transition from corporate America to full-time real estate. COVID's kind of pushed that a little bit, right? Because some people don't want to be on planes anymore and be in offices anymore. But at the same time, we're affecting them and their buyers and sellers generationally, if you think about it. And that's exciting because some people never knew about this. So now you show someone how to do this, then they go out and help 2 families, essentially, a buyer and a seller. Now you help them generationally. It's pretty cool momentum we got going on. And I see the terms niche growing leaps and bounds because the banks are getting tighter and tighter. They don't change. They get tighter and tighter and tighter. They make it harder and harder. And so more transactions are being done outside of banks, non-conventional.
And what's a recent deal that one of your students has done that you can kind of give us like the kind of case study of it that you thought was really cool?
Let's see. We do so many per month. Brian just talked to us. He's actually a strategy expert too. Your listeners can have a free call with this guy, but he's only about 16 months into this, and he just structured a brand new 60-month sandwich lease. We used to do like 3 years, and now we've been pushing the envelope with how long we can go. His 3 paydays on that, I believe, are over 80 grand. He just did it last night on a live workshop. So I don't have the numbers cold, but that was a cool deal. 60-month sandwich lease.
So he found him motivated, and so like on these sandwich leases too, you could just go look for people that are essentially looking to lease their property. Maybe it's been sitting idle and not being leased up, and they might be just trying to self-lease it, and they might be a great potential lease to own type structure.
For rent by owner, that you just described sort of the for rent by owner lead source. That's a good one. And then expireds and for sale by owners. Right now, for sale by owners are selling, a lot of them, but you still get expired listings in every market. Realtors call us and give us those. So as the virtual assistants, we use virtual assistants. As they reach out to those 3 different lead sources, they fill out property information sheets, and then we call those that are interested. So you're not calling people just ad nauseum that aren't interested.
I love that too, because in my lending business, I have 3 full-time virtual assistants, and I can't tell people enough. It's like, you gotta, I was never a systems oriented person. It's kind of if you're not good at following systems, it's kind of a downfall. Like you need to you don't need to create the system. You just need to learn how to find a good system and then just implement. And so as I get older and wiser in life, that's my, the key, right? And if you're not very detail oriented or so forth, you get the right people on your team to do the things you don't like to do. So I have a systems guy, and he helps me basically create the systems for my virtual assistants, right?
Awesome.
And I'm sure that you have some kind of in your coaching program, you have kind of hey, if you want a VA, here's some systems that you might want to implement, and it's kind of plug and play, right?
We also give them. So we train. It's painful. We wish we didn't have to do it, but we train our own VAs. My son-in-law Zach handles that, but we've got about 11 of them now. So the people that come in, we call them associates. The people that we're doing deals with, students, we lock arms, we do deals with them. They get access to these. So they don't have to train them. They don't have to set anything up. We did it.
So they'll actually market for you in your particular market, essentially.
They go to work for you. They go 10 hours a week, typically on the phones for our students, each student. Yep.
Wow, that's perfect. So really, there's no excuses for people. Oh, I don't have time.
Plug and play.
Yeah. So these virtual assistants are essentially here's 10 potential good leads here. Instead of going through the 500 we just went through, here's 10. All you have to do is call them. And so where do you find the most success? Calling, texting, emailing? What are kind of your preferences in the marketing?
Calling. Yeah, still calling. We don't do heavy mailings because I just don't think it's, 2 things. The new people don't like to spend money, right? They're just starting out. So I'm averse to that because I didn't have any when I started. And then secondly, the phone is still the predictable. I can tell you, we have the metrics. How many calls to get a lead, how many calls to get in the door, and how many calls to get a contract. And then how many of those will be on the market before you sell it. It's very predictable now. We've done hundreds and hundreds of them.
Very cool. And so just to kind of reiterate, your preference is usually always to take it subject to and get on title, but usually the second strategy is a lease option or rent to own.
If there's debt on the property, my first option is sub 2, backup is sandwich. If it's free and clear, first option is owner financing, principal only payments, backup is sandwich lease.
And when you're dealing with a lot of these free and clear properties, it's really not about they could easily go and list the property usually on the market with an agent.
Yeah, so, it's price or pay. It's price or taxes or cash flow planning. That's usually why they'll do it. My own office building, I'm at home today, but my own office building is 5 minutes away. I bought that from a real estate investor who had owned it for 21 years, thought his son was going to take it. His son moved out of state, is free and clear, and he owner financed it for 20 years for me. No commercial underwriting, which can be grueling. None of that. Just direct dealing with him. Very simple.
That's perfect. I think us as in real estate investors, we need to really think outside the box, because I think if you go with everybody else trying to buy low, fix them up and flip them, right? I've done that. I've been there. I've done that. And yes, can you make money that way? But I don't want to be a flipper. It's just too much work, too much headache, too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen versus
thin margins.
What you're doing is really, you're finding usually probably the majority of your houses are pretty much move-in ready. versus like maybe occasionally you have to do some light spruce up. But the
We have to
majority,
pass that on to the buyer. But yeah, some of them need some work, but if the buyer takes it over, we advertise it that way.
and if you were to find a deal that was like a handyman special, you would just advertise it for the right handyman special because they like it because they can't get finance, and you can do a rent to own for them on those type of properties. So
Yeah,
you don't have,
hit it.
yeah.
You hit it, Beau, because there's so many contractors that are self-employed that for seasoning and other reasons, they won't get financing right now. They don't want them. So they love rent to own.
Yeah, there's just so many ways to go about it. So let's go kind of dive into like, how long have you been, when you started your, it's called Smart Real Estate Coach, right?
The coaching arm, yeah.
The coaching arm. When did you start that? And, you know, what does that look like going forward for you? I'm sure it's probably, once you get to a certain level, it's probably more fun now for you to have your students closing deals and yourself. So what does it look like when people join your coaching program? Like, what do you get? What kind of, like, is it a weekly? Is it a monthly call?
Yeah, it depends. We have group coaching, weekly on Zoom with our certified coaches. Then we have 3 different levels, 3 tiers of what we call associate level. Those are the levels that they have to apply for because we're careful where we are. We're careful who we take into the Wicked Smart community. And then they get at the highest level, they get myself. At the middle level, they get my son-in-law, Zach. And at the bottom level, they get our coaches. Our coaches are all people that went through the highest level and have done deals and are still doing deals. So they're phenomenal coaches. So it's all about doing transactions. So if they're going to come into the community, it's we're doing deals. We do 10 deals together and we revenue share together. We're in it. We're helping you, the buyers, the sellers, our entire team, our entire process. You're learning because we're with you doing those deals. After 10, you do what we call cap out. You don't have to revenue share with us anymore. You can do your own thing.
That's a very interesting model. So it's almost like a real estate investing kind of like, I look at it like if you were a real estate agent, right? Like you'd have a mentor.
Yeah.
But so it's like a similar model, like, because most people are going to fail because they don't get started. They're nervous. Like, and so what you do is your coach is actually, your coaches are motivated because, right, they're getting more deal flow. And they're going to basically hold the hand of the new student the whole way through until they do 10 deals. And then once they're on 10 deals and they're graduated, they should be able to handle most any situation that arises. And that creates more successful students. At the end of the day, you know, your coaching program is going to grow because it's going to be word of mouth, right? People are saying, oh, you know, I'm in Chris's coaching program and I'm actually closing deals. I'm not like, you know, one of these people that so many people go into coaching programs and they just never take action. And then like it sits on their shelf. They don't go into the course. You know, there are some people occasionally that could just take information and run with it, but the majority of people never do anything with it unless
they need some implementation and some execution. That's why we do what we do. I think there's an enormous gap. We call it bridging the gap, Beau. There's an enormous gap between I took a course or a seminar and I did a deal. Some people never get there. That gap is like ridiculously huge. I had a guy to this day is with us. I had 2 actually, a female and a male, who came to us once upon a time. They probably came way back in 15. We started the coaching in 14. I had never answered that. So in 15, these guys came and they said, I spent 6 figures on past programs and I never did a deal. One of them's wife was like, you're not talking to them. You're not doing another program. Now, fast forward, he's since upgraded to our highest program and has done millions in 3 paydays. What was the difference? Hands-on execution. Let's do this together. Come on. Here's what you do next. Here's what you do next. Let's critique that call live together. Let's call that seller together. We're in it, in the trenches with them.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And I really, I mean, I could go on and ask a million questions today, because this is something like, you know, I always say that real estate investors are like a kind of a nerd tribe, right? Like they just nerd out to this whole real estate investing. And it's like, people get so excited. I've been to conferences and different things, and like, it's like you could sit there and talk about, you know, real estate investing for hours. And every time I talk about or hear about financing on term, seller financing and sub 2, and I always keep on saying, do it. Like, you know, the writing is on the wall. Like if you're not using these strategies, you're missing out on like the majority of of deals out there today, because it's really not about price, it's about terms. And that's the
100%.
biggest thing in real estate that people just don't get. It's not about price, it's about the terms. I'm going to put all your links below. And if you're watching this on YouTube later or on our website, we'll put all your contact information so we can give some value. Any kind of closing nuggets you want to tell our viewers and listeners?
Just a quick summary of 3 steps I would suggest. I don't care what niche you're in. Find a niche you can get behind, right? That you can get passionate about. 2, find someone in the niche still doing it, still active, not a has-been that's where you want to be. And 3rd, make sure you put blinders on at that point, and for 36 months, go on that lane. Don't deviate for all the shiny objects. If you do that 3-step formula, you'll have success in almost any business, but relative to real estate is what we're talking about today. And I'm happy to give your listeners, Beau, if you want, a strategy call, because I mentioned earlier I would do that with Brian. It would be Brian, myself, or Zach, my son-in-law. They can just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action. It's free.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. God, I learned a lot today, and I'm excited. I always get excited when I interview good guests. So thanks, you.
Buddy.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. For show notes and useful resources, please visit investorfinancingpodcast.com. For questions or comments, email info@investorfinancingpodcast.com. If you enjoy our show, please share it with your network. Until next time.